Hi everyone, I'm Jon Maskrey. I'm a UX designer and front-end developer at Zengenti. I've been working here for about, 5 years now, and for those in professional services. And I've recently moved to the product development team, where I'm a... So yeah, my role's split. So half the time I'm doing technical work, so I'm working on the UI of Contensis, and prototyping new functionality, that kind of thing. And the other half of it is actually going out and visiting our users, doing user testing, contextual inquiries, and basically seeing what their frustrations are and how they work. So on to the user interviews. So yeah, I've been going out and visiting you and actually seeing end users, actual editors and developers. And I've been visiting people in their place of work. So it's really good to actually get the context of where they work. So you can see, the circumstances where they are. Are they in a loud office? Do they have fast equipment? Are they on a slow internet connection, for example? And part of that is getting the interviewee to sort of show rather than tell what they do, using their own equipment, which is really important. And basically been recording the audio and taking notes from the sessions to actually capture anyone's frustrations or how they do things, anything different that we could do to make their lives easier. And to help with that, I've been using a tool called Reframer. It's made by Optimal Workshop, and it allows you to record notes from the sessions and tag them as you go. As you can see from the screen there, it auto-completes your tags, and it allows you to really build up a quick picture that's searchable with the tags. And it's got some really great ways of actually displaying the information for you. So here's the tag diagram, and it allows you to show relationships between certain things you observed and tagged. So for example, if you hover over someone's perfect day, it tells us a lot of people have said they just want to get their headphones on, get their head down and work without interruption. You can also collect the tags and observations into themes. It allows you to really quickly sort of drill down to certain areas. So in this example, we've created a theme called frustrations. So every observation that was tagged as something that frustrated the user will be collated here. And it allows us to really easily sort of add tasks to our backlog, related to those frustrations and so on. You can tag anything with that. It's really quite flexible. Okay, nothing beats getting actual real users in front of your product or your website. I've done talks at previous rockets that say, I've said it doesn't have to take a lot of time. User testing can be done quite quickly. And even small amounts can actually gain huge insights into your product or your website. So as you can see from the research from Jacob Nielsen, he did a study on how many participants to actually perform user testing tasks with. And he found that after 5 people, you've usually found about 85% of any potential issues. After 10 people, 95%. And the magic number with this is around 15 people. That's when most of the issues will be found by the actual testers. And if you carry on, you could carry on sort of testing like 30, 40 people, but you tend to find the same problems just reoccurring time and time again. And yeah, it just really shows you don't have to test on a lot of people to actually gain very good insight. And the sort of golden rule for this is if you don't test at all, so if you test 0 users, you actually gain no insight at all. And indeed, we found with some tests we did with some new features of the product, after just testing on 3 users, we realized we needed to make some changes. So yeah, that was about, I don't know, half an hour, 45 minutes worth of time spent to actually get some proper good insight. And to actually help us collect that data, we've used a product called Look Back. It's an app that allows you to record the user's interactions with the screen. and also their face and audio. So you can hear what they're saying, you can see any expressions if they're looking frustrated. And it allows you to add comments to the timeline. You can see a little green timeline at the bottom there, and it allows you to add comments on that so you can quickly zoom in and find areas of frustrations. So what have we done to actually improve Contensis with all this information we've gathered? There's 3 areas of improvement I'm going to go through today. There's been a lot that we've done, but the main 3 areas are the composer editor, entry validation, and actually developing in Contensis itself. So I've been speaking to a lot of developers, both within our professional services team and also out there with you. So developers at different companies and colleges. So to start off with, the composer. This is a new feature of content entries, and it allows the user to add multiple different fields into one area. I'll just give you a little example. So as you can see here, a composable editor allows you to add headings, allows you to add text and images, and it's really a great way to add flexibility to what is essentially structured content. And we designed this to actually try and split out and stored separately, like headings and the actual text itself. So it becomes more of a content store, which is then available to use on a website, for example, but also maybe in an app or something that doesn't understand HTML. So one of the reasons for doing this was so we didn't actually store any of the structural sort of HTML with the actual data itself. But we did have problems that were surfaced with user testing. And here's Toki, and she'll just go through
content creation. I mean, this is good. I think it's slower in a way than just pasting it all in and selecting an area and calling that medium heading. But I guess the point is that these can then be created into little blocks of the future, can't they?
Yeah, that's the thinking.
But would you ever want your heading separate from the main text that it's referring to? I mean, doesn't it make sense to have like the heading and the text joined together?
So it's immediately obvious from the testing that we had to rethink the way composable editors were actually work with the user. Most people straight away tried to copy and paste a whole bunch of text straight in and expected it to be able to do that. And as Toki was saying there, it felt slow. Why can't you just have the heading with the text? Because that's where it would be naturally anyway. And so we realised we'd actually put the onus of splitting stuff out onto the content editor rather than our developers doing it behind the scenes for them. So we redid the editor so it's you can now just copy and paste in one hit, like a Word document, for example. Onto entry validation. An entry field can be set to be required so that it forces a user to fill it in. But content entries themselves can be quite long if you've got a lot of data to add, and it's quite easy to have got to the bottom of the screen and not filled in something or missed something further up. And that message, when you hit save, is going to be out of view. I'll give you an example here. So as you can see, scrolling down, filling some forms in, hitting save, and really simple, we've scrolled back to the first validation message there. So that's another really small thing that kept showing up in quite a few of our tests, and really easy fix for us to do. Onto the developer workflow. As I said before, I've been out and seen a lot of developers and how they work with Contensis, both within professional services and externally as well. And one of the things that I observed was it can be very, very complicated and very convoluted, the way that developers work to actually get a site from design to actually working in Contensis. It can be really simple depending on what they're doing, like the day-to-day tasks, but overall, when developing from scratch, there are a lot of stages. And I'll go through those now. So first up, we've got the front-end development, usually done on a user's local machine. So it's writing the HTML, getting the CSS together, getting the images and so forth, all those sort of assets together. And what we found was a lot of people using Sass nowadays, so they'll be using some sort of task runner to actually convert the Sass to readable CSS, and that's usually Gulp. Also, a lot of projects are now a lot larger than they ever have been, and they've got multiple developers working on them. So we found that a lot of people are now using some sort of repo, usually Git, so they can store and version any changes. And it means you can roll back. Developers can check out files and not tread on each other's toes by working on the same assets, for example. Then we move on to the Contensis workflow itself. So, creating templates, creating your razor views, creating the folder structure for the site within Contensis. And then you have to manually copy and paste everything across. So uploading images, fonts, that sort of thing, copying and pasting HTML from your local development into your templates in Contensis. And from there, you'll be editing your templates, making them, giving them placeholders, and editing your razor views. And that can be that's where your workflow might end. Especially if you're a Mac user, you have to generally do all your editing in Contensis. But for those people, quite often the more back-end developers will use the desktop tool to download the solution locally. So they can develop their razor views and test everything on a local machine, and it won't affect anything on the actual Contensis installation on the cloud. And then they'll copy and paste that back into Contensis once the code's ready. We found a few areas where there's some friction in this workflow. First up is actually getting the files from your existing local solution into Contensis in the first place. So it's a bit of a pain manually copying and pasting files up, or manually copying and pasting the actual HTML into a template. Of course, sometimes you have to change your code, so you need to go back to your local version, change it there, check it's all right, copy and paste it back, make sure it's okay in Contensis. So that was an area of friction that we identified. Second one was actually using the editor in Contensis, so editing razor files and HTML and the templates basically. We've been using a third-party editor called CodeMirror, and it's clearly, as time's gone by, it's just not up to the task anymore, and we have a lot of feedback about how that could be improved, which I'll go on to in a sec. Also, with the areas around using the desktop tool, again, it was quite easy downloading the initial solution, but sometimes you've got to get the right connection details, you've got to have FTP access, you've got to have database access, so sometimes there's an issue with that. It could be easier. And lastly was, everyone's using Git, or a lot of people are using Git, but there's no way to actually sync that at the moment with Contensis. So if you made a change locally, that's fine, it'd sync with Git, but if you wanted to make a change in code in Contensis, you didn't have to recreate that locally, then synchronize that with Git. And so that was a bit of a pain. So yeah, as I was saying, onto the code editor. So we had a lot of developer feedback about the code editor, and some quite honest feedback. I'll just go through a few of those. A bit of a nightmare, to be honest. The tabbing is nuts. The tabbing is horrendous. There's a lot of comments about how the tabbing in the code editor was. IntelliSense in the editor would be useful to save 1,000 issues. And from all that, we realised we needed a much better code editor. So we went with Monaco Editor, and that's the actual editor that's used in Microsoft Visual Studio Code desktop app. So it's desktop grade editing within Contensis now. And so you can do stuff like tab correctly, which sounds silly, but you want to be able to format your code and make it look good and make it easy to read. It's got IntelliSense built in. It's got code completion, it's got a really good find and replace functionality. And one of the things that really used to bug me when I was developing was you could I got into a habit, and I think a lot of people do, of opening a file in read-only mode. So you don't accidentally change something and you don't check it out so no one else can actually work with it. But it was easy to forget you did that. And you could actually, the old editor would let you type and create new code, edit the actual razor view or template without actually telling you that it was read-only. So you could spend some time, if you'd forget, editing and then hit save and then nothing would happen. It'd be like, you can't save this, it's in read-only. So we've now got a protected read-only mode. So you open something in read-only and you can't actually change it. So it's immediately obvious, you're not going to waste any time. One of the other areas that we looked at was actually copying and pasting files across and getting assets and files into Contensis in the first place. It was quite repetitive, especially if you have to make changes locally, then recreate those changes later in Contensis. So we developed an npm package which allows you to push files from your local solution directly into Contensis. So you can do it in bulk. Every time you make a change locally, you just type in a few characters into your terminal and it'll push stuff up. And that's really going to help with streamlining the workflow, especially for front-end devs. And yeah, it uses gulp, and it's got such things like push. So you just put a command in and you can push all your local files up. So no more copying and pasting CSS or like manually finding a folder and uploading them. You can push straight to the production environment, so you can push and make them live. You can synchronize stuff, so you can make basically a copy of your local environment up onto the Contensis installation. So if you've got lots of files that you've deleted locally, they'll be deleted on your actual Contensis install. And you can also simulate all of these as well. So for safety, we put in a simulate task, so you can actually simulate the push and you just get a list of files that will be uploaded or changed. So thank you very much. I've been through how our user testing has helped shape the future of Contensis. And just to remind you, it's a continual process. So I'll be going around visiting you guys basically over the next few months and continuously. And it's just really great how we can get such an insight into how people actually use Contensis and see that affecting the product. Thank you very much.